The designated area offence is likely to impact on the following groups: humanitarian aid workers, foreign correspondents, citizens who have family and friends living in a designated area, campaigners who support or wish to show solidarity with various groups in the designated area. This is a community legal education presentation. My name is Nasir Hafezi, I'm a solicitor, and here's 10 points about the designated area offence, a controversial terror offence. Point 1. The designated area offence was passed by the Counter-Terrorism and Border Security Act 2019. The offence is akin to an international version of a trespass offence, but with much harsher sanctions. The government's aim of creating this new offence of banning travel to designated conflict zones is that it would help to tackle the threat posed by foreign fighters. Point 2. The government can designate an area if the following condition is met. The Secretary of State is satisfied that it is necessary for the purposes of protecting members of the public from a risk of terrorism to restrict UK nationals and UK residents from entering and remaining in the area. The procedure to designate includes the Home Secretary consulting with the Foreign Secretary to see if the test is met. If so, the Home Secretary then making a regulation with an accompanying statement to Parliament stating the test has been met with reasons to designate an area. This lasts up to 40 days. The designated area regulation would only continue after 40 days with parliamentary approval. It's also important to know any designated area should be under constant review and can be revoked if the test is not met, and in any event can be no more than last 3 years from the time the area becomes designated. Point 3. A person commits a designated area offence if the person enters or remains in a designated area. Point 4. A designated area offence applies to both a UK national or resident. Point 5. If a person enters and remains in the designated area, they will commit an offence which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. The police would need admissible evidence that a person has trespassed into a designated area for the offence to be proven. Point 6. A person doesn't commit a designated area offence in the following 2 circumstances. 1. If a person is in a designated area on the day that area becomes designated and that person leaves within 1 month of that date. 2. The person is involuntarily in a designated area, such as someone who has been detained against their will or is prevented from leaving. Point 7. A person does not commit a designated area if they can show on their return that they entered and remained in the designated area for one of the following 7 purposes or exemptions. 1. Providing aid of a humanitarian nature, not in contravention of international law, that is materially assisting terrorists, proscribed groups or a hostile regime. 2. Satisfying an obligation to appear before a court or other body exercising judicial power. 3. Carrying out work for the government of a country other than the United Kingdom, including services in or with the country's armed forces. 4. Carrying out work for the United Nations or agency of the United Nations. 5. Carrying out work as a journalist. 6. Attending the funeral of a relative or visiting a relative who is terminally ill, that is someone not reasonably expected to live beyond 6 months. And 7. Providing care for a relative who is unable to care for themselves without such assistance. These exemptions were made following pressure brought by the charity sector, UK-based advocacy groups and journalists. Point 8. A person does not commit a designated area offence if they can prove they have a reasonable excuse for entering and remaining in a designated area, which does not fall within the 7 lawful purposes or exemptions. The term reasonable excuse is not defined. It will be a matter for the court to define what reasonable excuse would be on a case-by-case basis. Future cases on reasonable excuse could be researching war crimes in the designated area, extracting a person from a designated area, an unofficial journalist reporting from a designated area, lawyers visiting their clients, or armed security groups operating to protect facilities. Point 9. A person does not commit an offence if the person is acting on behalf or holding office under the Crown, for example, a UK envoy or soldier. Point 10. The following criticisms have been levelled at the offence by prominent academics, liberty and security groups. 4 are mentioned here. 1. The offence would be committed by visiting or living in a designated area even though the person has not actually committed any offence. Some people have argued that such persons need help, not to be prosecuted. 2. The law shifts the burden on the person to prove they fall within the 7 stated lawful purposes or has a reasonable excuse. That may not always be easy for the defendant to prove, and therefore documentary evidence is key to a successful defence. 3. The offence may prevent journalist reporting and humanitarian aid work to desperate people in need in those designated areas for fear of being prosecuted by this offence. And 4. Designated area can be used to tip the balance of a conflict to one group over another through designated one particular area and not the whole region. As such, pressure may be brought to designated areas on behalf of foreign powers rather than to protect the UK from harm. Here's some advice. 1. If you have any observations, concerns and recommendations about an area being designated, then please write to the Home Secretary. 2. If you have been living in a designated area and want to return to the UK, then seek advice from a specialist solicitor. And 3. If you are a humanitarian aid worker, journalists, or have family and friends in a designated area and want to travel to those such areas, then you're strongly advised to consider notifying the relevant authorities prior to travel and obtain their approval. And again, seek specialist legal advice. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Community Legal Education so you can watch more videos in the series and many more. Please donate via Patreon or my funding page so we can make more legal explainer videos. Please speak to a solicitor if you need legal advice, and may the justice be with you.